want with healing an elongated state, because like this guy says he's not getting results from doing it, but like my stretch flaccid is literally up half an inch since doing this. All right, guys, so I just posted a new theory on retention, and I wanted to go through some of the comments and a few things that I've missed. But before I get into it, check out the links in the description below for Leviathan Wellness Supplements on Amazon and LeviathanSubs.com. Essentially, it is what me and my business partner Hink think is best for overall sexual performance and men's health. Then, making sure I don't have any bats in the cave, we have Peak Physique for affordable penis enlargement equipment, and you can also find my books, BD's Big Book of Length and Expansion Pack. Basically, it is essentially everything that I've confirmed about penis enlargement over the past year and what I think is the most effective approach based off of the science. So if you're struggling to follow along on the YouTube or the Reddit, it's probably up your alley. Expect a major update at the end of May that you will get for free. Since I'm really bad at this and have to do this in post, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. It does actually help a lot. For whatever reason, YouTube keeps changing the rules on us, so help us out. Okay, so first thing, let's just talk about what retention is. Retention is the idea that since we are not at full size most of the day, assuming that you don't have a constant erection like normal, your penis is going to have the propensity to return to that shape and then heal in that shape. Now, people used to call the idea of retention healing in an elongated state, but just because of the way it was explained to me, I don't think that is the best way to describe what it is, because healing happens around the clock. What we're doing is changing the heel pattern. So if we're trying to get a longer penis, we're trying to convince it to grow more in the length direction rather than just all around, because the collagen fibrils are just going to grow regardless in whatever shape it's already in. So if your flaccid is like, let's say a good 4x3, your growth's going to be roughly 4x3. So if you're a grower always shriveled up, you're just going to get a denser tunica rather than a longer or wider tunica. At least that's what the premise of this theory is. Now, as this has already been said, this is not a new idea. It's probably been about a 20-year-old theory, and we'll touch a little bit more on that. But I wanted to clear something up, and I didn't give Perv Adam Romero at Massive Novelties his credit. I talked to him a lot about this stuff, and he started doing this stuff before me, and of course I gave him shit about doing it until, you know, I was not able to poke holes into it logically. Then I started looking into it, and then I got overexcited and forgot to mention him in my video. So this is a lot of Adam's intuition and me stealing his thunder. Okay, then since it is such an old idea, I can't take full credit for it. What I'm trying to do is try to figure out like the actual science behind it and like how we can actually implement it. And that's where a lot of these comments take issue, is that since it's already been done and it didn't work for them, why is it going to work now? That's what we're going to talk about. So the post, let's see. So gold member, best mod on r/getting bigger, says he's trying out this theory for me, and I've been chatting him a lot with troubleshooting, because this is surprisingly hard to get right, and that's what I'm going to talk about here in a bit. But whatever this crap is that posted their username, so whatever username, however you say that, is like, which part of this is a new theory? Putting a sleeve or a soft clamp on for a few hours, going to an ADS to heal or cement in an elongated state. Yeah, so again, this is not a new theory, as U-Turn 2020 pointed out. People were wrapping with ACE bandages to stay elongated after the session. Silicone sleeves also been around for a long time. I used to wear one with a weight at the end of years ago. Didn't make any different in my experience. So this is what I mean. We need to figure out what works, because like the science says there is evidence that it works. Like if it works with Achilles tendons, which are much thicker and harder to stretch than say the tunica, why would it not work with the tunica? So there's obviously something that we're missing. Then I think a lot of this issue with healing in an elongated state is that people are actually putting too much pressure on. So right now, I'm using 12 ounces of tension just to stay elongated for most of the day. That is a very easy number to go past. And if you're smaller than me, which I'm assuming like 99% of you are, you're going to need less weight than that. So let's say you're an average size guy, you're going to only need, let's say, half a pound all day to get like this proper tension. And notice how I'm using like an actual weight or tension. That is because with a silicone sleeve, there is propensity to still retract. And this is something I should have rewritten in my script before I posted it, is that with the sleeve, I'm not near full length, but when I put a vacuum belt on with the sleeve, so like I basically take off my apex extender and then I just kind of let it hang. That's how I stay full length for that amount of time, because there's nothing to allow that tissue to retract. There's a little vacuum holding my glands up from being slowly falling into the sleeve. Sorry, I'm a growing boy. Ugh. Ugh. I don't know why whey protein starts tasting bad after you're like, let's say 30 minutes. It's like it goes stale. Ugh. I'm gonna regret that. But anyway, so basically, right now, I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe the feeling that you want with healing in an elongated state, because, like, this guy says he's not getting results from doing it, but, like, my stretch flaccid is literally up half an inch since doing this. So, like, I was 9 inches stretch flaccid this morning before any PE. Last Monday, I was so like one thing that I need to figure out is a good way to describe how much work you need to do. So first of all, I'm using weight. Second of all, a lot of times in the old days, there was just a shit ton of work prescribed, and like I think that was the main detriment of healing an elongated state, is that even though you're like coaxing the tissues to be longer, you're not actually giving it time to recover. So you're just kind of stagnating. So like if you're doing a lot of heavy hanging, you're not really giving the tissues enough time to fully heal from that workload. So like I'm only doing 30 to 40 minutes in the apex a day, and like 2 sets of 10 minutes of pumping, well, interval pumping. So what is that? 5 2-minute sets twice a day. One's going to be at like 20 kilopascals, the other one's going to be at 30 kilopascals, because the 20 kilopascal set, the smaller pressure set's going to be just for pulling in nutrients and helping it stay distended. And then the 30 kilopascal set's going to be just to, like, stretch the tissues out. But what I'm really trying to say is that back before all this, and what's different from my routine, is that it was just a lot more work. And I think that's kind of like the main failing point of healing an elongated state before, is that one, there's so much work to begin with, and two, if you are not actually either in full elongation or you're at a tension point that is beyond just being at full length, you're actually going to be fatiguing the tissues even more. So like if we're not careful, we can actually hurt progress with healing an elongated state. Another comment. This is great in theory, says I'm a Jen Parker. Okay, this is great in theory, but whenever someone posts on here about leaving their dick in a sleeve the whole day after a bunch of guys comment about how they tried it and didn't do anything, but maybe they just need to establish rigorous protocols on how to do it and gain some actual good data. Yeah, and that's basically what I was saying. And then Captain Unobvious is one of them. I tried extensively through various stages of my 2-year PE career. I've done exactly as he describes. I saw no discernible gains compared to not doing it. I take careful notes in my logs. The one thing that this method does for me as a grower, it does give me a bit of a glimpse of life as a shower. I remove the sleeve. After that, it goes back to a grower flaccid. For those that recommend doing it, I highly recommend powdering your sleeves and with baby powder, and then it helps reduce the moisture and helps remove makes removal super easy and painless. I used to get sticky skin caught in my sleeve and then taking it off, and it could hurt like a mofo. And then edit. I love BD. BD, I love thinking it and always. Wait, I'm not dyslexic, I swear. BD, I love the thinking and always appreciate your experimentation mindset. And that's why I come here. The twice per day is the idea of some serious merit. I have one of the biggest post newbie gained growth spurts when I did AM and PM split routine at 1 hour each. Okay, so first thing about the baby powder is that I have not needed to use it, and that's what kind of helps me keep it comfortable. But I'm a very sweaty guy in general, so I don't know. Maybe it's just like that certain point where my skin's too wet for it to like stick to. But anyway, it also depends on how long you're actually wearing this. So like Captain Obvious, I'm not calling you a liar, but like for me, I've like have been wearing this from 5 or 6 in the morning, depending when I get up, to like 6 or 7 at night, and I'm doing PE in between. So like my penis does not have a time to like retract, and that's different from what I'm saying in the video. I'm more or less means testing on like making sure it's an actual stable theory before like I start cutting back. And then as for the 2 a days, I think it's a good starting point for a lot of people just because it's much easier to work in your schedule. And honestly, Hink, who is a very consistent gainer for the most part, it does 2 a days, particularly for the past 6 months or so. So like that's probably a safe bet. But like I said, I just think there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily setting it up right, and there's probably a point where it is just difficult to set up right. Okay, now this U-turn 2020 again comments how he tried a silicone sleeve with a lightweight at the end of after extending to try to heal an elongated state. Again, not a big fan of that term, but you know, can't change the past. Let's see. I had little to no results compared to just extending. It seemed to be detrimental in my experience, maybe because of the lack of blood flow. My EQ suffered and my post-fatigue length diminished if there wasn't a name for it at the time. I just noticed I wasn't able to increase ADS length or relax in the stretch as easily as after wearing the sleeve. The theory is great, but anecdotally, I don't recommend it personally. So, like, let's talk about what we know so far. So, like, we know that fatigue accumulates, right? So, like, if you are getting to the point where you need rest, your ability to stretch is not going to increase. So, like, for me, it's about a 3 week period from like day 0 to day 21. I will see my stretch flaccid length slowly increase by about day 20, though. That's when it becomes pretty stagnant, and by day 28, there is no change. So, what I say to do in my books is when you see your stretch flaccid length stop, that's when you take a rest. And then, if we're following retention theory all the way through, during this time, continue to wear the sleeve so that way those collagen fibrils, because you're going to have an increase in collagen building activity, that's when you really want to be retained in that week off, just so that way it's trained to take that shape, at least the new fibrils are. But if your EQ is suffering, that is more of a sign of overwork. So like I've had maybe 1 or 2 overwork events in the past 2 weeks where my EQ wasn't the best, but this would be at like 8 or 9 p.m. It has been a long day. I'm still in a relative cut, so like it's pretty easy for me to like have bad erection quality. But I wouldn't say it's easy, but you know, there's compounding variables that add to it. It's not like I can't get hard. It's just like sometimes it takes a little more to get me going. With that being said, it's more or less because I actually wore cock ring for too long rather than being in an elongated state too long. So again, there's a lot to be playing around with, but my thing is like with wearing a weight in particular, if it's like, let's say over a pound, you're probably going to be at the point where it is fatiguing and therefore causing more harm than good. Road to a, doesn't that mean 5 straight days a week training would be better than 1 on, 1 off, or 2 on, 1 off for at least length? Since high frequency training seems to be better, like stated in the AM and PM training. I'm not okay, so high frequency, not high intensity. So I'm thinking. Right now, what I'm doing is basically 3 days on with actual fatigue work. So like that's when I'll use the apex extender. I'll stretch, and then the day off, all I'll do is retain, and then I'll do my 2 sets of interval pumping, but mainly because I'm trying to pull in nutrients rather than I'm trying to fatigue. On the days off, I notice much bigger pumps, but that's a topic that I still need to figure out. So would 5 days straight a week training be better than one on, one off? No, because I still think that if we're trying to follow like physiotherapy and tendon healing, it's going to need time off to like heal. And that's where I think a lot of the old school methods miss, is that we're not dealing with plastic, we're dealing with living tissue, and there'll be a point where it degrades to the point where you'll see the performance drops like U-Turn 2020 had. So again, we need to be careful. It's very complex for the very simple idea, to be honest. Okay, Tangelo. This seems simple enough, but I'd love more info on it in this practice. How tight should the cock rings be and sleeve should be? Would a sleeve be a good for length, but a negative for post-curve training as it will compress with tunica? I train both on one day and don't want to practice retention at the expense of the other. So what I've been doing is all day length, essentially. So I'm wearing the 12-ounce weights, and then I use the apex, and then I guess it really depends on how much time I have in the morning and when I get up. But like I'll either do 10 minutes of pumping before my workout, and then put the sleeve on, and then come back and do the apex, uh, retain length, and then I'll pump up again, and then I'll wear a cock ring afterwards for 20 to 30 minutes because I'm still trying to fatigue those fibrils. So like again, this is very new still. Like the nice thing about my interval length protocols and interval pumping is that it's very straightforward because we're just shooting for a target expansion rate and elongation rate. With this, it's anyone's best guess, but from what I've been experiencing, I've had pretty jarring results so far. Instead of perv, like I said, I put on like what, half an inch in about 10 days in stretch flaccid length. Granted, I have a lot more variables going on here than a typical individual, but that's neither here nor there. Also, could you let's switch to this. Also, could you not just Also, could you clarify why it's not just a new scientific understanding why healing in elongated state works? The argument appears to be that because of our understanding of the mechanism of the action differs, we should call it something else. Wouldn't that be like saying we should call bicep curls something different because now we understand it, that the mechanism by which... Okay, so I call it retention theory because it's just what makes sense to me. Again, you guys can call it whatever you want, but like... if you're going to be reading my shit, I'm calling it retention theory. It's just what it makes sense to me to call it that. Healing elongated state is something else described to me, and it was simple as that. Okay, old school traction therapy was healing in an elongated state to me. This is training for a certain shape after the fact. Yes, I know, it's very semantic. So again, this is still like in its infancy, like how much pressure we actually need. But like to me, you want for girth. Okay, so for like girth training, we were going to want to be like slightly distended for about 30 to 60 minutes. So like I come out of the tube, I'm about 6 3/8 right now out of the tube. I want to be about at least over 6 inches with the cock ring 20 minutes into it just to train it to be in that shape. You will lose size. And if you do this right, actually, there's a good chance that you'll be even thicker because the edema starts to build up under the skin. So keep that in mind. As for length, you don't want the sleeve to be overly tight. I still think you want to be wearing the vacuum bell with the sleeve as of right now, just because that way the glands can't slide out of the sleeve and you lose the elongation. But overall, as long as the sleeve isn't super tight, like I use a 1-inch inner diameter sleeve, but that's like the biggest size that most places sell. So obviously, as for thickness, I know Massive Novelties is coming out of a 3mm thick sleeve and a 5mm thick sleeve here eventually. Sorry, Perv, you wanted to keep that on the down low, but you know, it's a relatively simple product. I don't think he cares all that much. Now let's go to YouTube comments. First, my hair. Okay, so I don't think a lot of people realize that I have pretty good hair genes. Today it's a little bit of a mess because I didn't do anything for it. But this is just a slight trim and a little bit of product, and that's it. So honestly, if you let your hair grow out for 18 months, you know, take care of it, condition it. You know, don't actually use a conditioner. You know, actually use a shampoo. You'll probably have pretty decent hair. But other than that, thank you for the compliments. I'm glad my hair's finally at a point where it doesn't kind of look ratty. A little too tight. I'll just leave it down, whatever. So you're saying, let's see, let's zoom in. So you're saying Hink was right with no rest days. I'm not necessarily saying Hink is right, but there is evidence that higher frequency should equate to more gains. The issue is like I was trying to work into what Hink was saying with it was I'm remodeling protein, and like the only thing I've found with it is that it is very common in scarification events. So like yes, it is present, but like everything I was saying, there needs to be a certain ratio of these growth factors, and like if you get the wrong ratio, you're going to get scarification. Otherwise, if you're in the golden ratio, you'll be getting growth. So like that needs more work, and like I'm not very good with like the hormonal aspects just yet. That's what I'm still working on. But right now, you're better. What I think it is like 2 days on, 1 day retain is what I'm doing, or 3 days on, 1 day retain. It really depends on like your erection quality, but that can also, you know, differ. BD looking like a unit. Superman juice is working. So like you guys know, I'm pretty open about my substance use, but like I'm telling you guys, all I've changed was I added 100 grams of carbs and creatine, and like I literally put on 8 pounds in 2 weeks. Okay, so like if it was anabolics, I would have told you that, but like at this point is like I was basically starving myself for 5 to 6 months to lose 20 to 30 pounds of body fat, and I finally reintroduced carbs, and I'm a very carb dependent person, so like I just filled it in very quickly. Bringing this full circle leads me to believe that one, daily length and girth sessions make more sense than off days that require a bunch of things to do. Fire rolls at any time take away from a PE session's accomplished size. 3, use heat at all times so that way you don't cool down. Just leave it alone and let it cool down naturally. Okay, so first, daily length and girth, like I still don't think that's the most optimal thing, but like if you're just a routine oriented person, just like do 20% less of my workload and you'll probably be fine doing it every other day or every day. And then fire goat rolls at any time take away from the accomplished PE size. No, because fire goat rolls are really only supposed to like disturb the skin. If you're really pressing into it, then maybe. But like if you're losing expansion with your fire goat rolls, you're pushing in too hard. And then heat at all the time, and you don't want to do a cool down. Just leave it alone and let it cool down naturally. I don't know. I don't fuck with heat. So, I mean, it's possible. You'd have to talk to someone who actually uses heat. I just don't think heat's absolutely needed. Grow to show. When do you expect the definitive evidence on the effectiveness of this method as applied to PE? I'm hoping within 3 months I'll have good progress pictures and at least can say it works for me. Let's see. Where can you get a proper sleeve? So, this is one of the reasons why I waited to talk about this, because Perv has been working on some sleeves on his own. But really, right now, you can get sleeves at Peak Physique, obvious bias. You want something with a bit of stretch, in my opinion. So like my sleeves are good, and Total Man not so much, just because it's more like a regular rubber rather than a silicone piece. Then there's a few new sellers on the Reddit that you can check out, and then for I would also say wait for perv, but like for me, if we're doing sleeves, it's like the bare minimum, and you probably actually want like a leg strap that you can get on eBay, or you can use 12-ounce fishing weights. So like I literally taped here. This is what I did, and it's really janky, but it works. I just took hair ties and then taped together some anchors for, or like what are some people that actually fish and not fish keep tell me what these are. Sinkers. They're sinkers. So these are 1 ounce sinkers. I got 12 of them, and taped them together so they didn't jingle, and then I just clip them to my vacuum belt and just walk around all day and hang it over my seat, and that's it. So like and then there's a bunch of requests for demos. Eventually I just want to make sure it works before I spend all that time doing it. But like based off of my understanding, it's going to work. It's just a matter of ironing out the details. So all right. So that's going to wrap it up today. It's just worth the shot if you have the time to wear a sleeve, or wear very light weights all day. It couldn't hurt. Obviously, if you see your erection quality drop, stop. But like, dude, I'm telling you, I'm like longer every single day doing it. And I think a bit of that issue though is that you guys know I caught COVID. I've stated that I believe I was over measuring by like a quarter of an inch. So like at my peak, I was claiming to be like 8.8 to 8.9, and then I caught COVID. So I'm not exactly sure if I was like, exaggerating a bit just based off of like my viewpoint, or I was 8.8 or 8.9 inches long. And then when I caught COVID, that collagen that built up got restricted into like this very dense shape. And that's why I lost length, because that collagen was trained to be in this tight ball. And now that I'm like kind of forcing it to elongate into the shape, that's why I'm packing on length pretty quickly right now. But we'll see. I will say that pumping was very intense last year, and that kind of makes sense if there's like a lot of like, I don't want to necessarily say scarification, but just like dense tissue. And like with this, a lot of my pumping sessions have been a lot less intense at higher pressures. So I don't know. That's just another compounding variable. As I look down at OBS, this is already a 30-minute video, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I will see you guys in the next one. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to probably have to edit that in too. And then Peak Physique for penis enlargement equipment, my books, Leviathan Sups for very good supplements, if I do say so myself, and you can find them as well on Amazon under Leviathan Wellness. All right, peace out, guys.